Lecture 2, we will be dealing with the licensing of an exchange. So now we deal with specific sections of the Act, and I'll be dealing first with exchanges. So in Joburg here, initially we had the JSE, and for a long time that was our stock exchange. And then after years and years of it being the monopoly of our stock market, it was found that the barriers to entry should not be so high. There should be other exchanges allowed to operate. So the Competition Commission did an investigation a couple of years back, and they found that the barriers to entry did not allow for other exchanges. So now we have a number of exchanges in Joburg. We have the Alt2X, A2X, ZARX, and a couple of others because the barriers to entry have now lessened. Remember, there was also a court case with the JSE in one of those exchanges where they felt like it was unfair competition, but it was found that it was not direct competition, as the clients that list on the JSE are not necessarily the same clients as the other exchanges. So when I talk about exchange, I talk about all the regulated exchanges. So first we'll be dealing with Section 7 of the Financial Markets Act, which deals with the licensing of an exchange. So how do you license an exchange? First of all, it must be licensed under Section 9, which we will deal with later. Secondly, and very important, a juristic person may apply. What is a juristic person? A juristic person is not a natural person. A natural person is a human being. So Frank goes and wants to get a license for an exchange. Hi, I would like to be an exchange. The answer will be no. You need to be a juristic person, a company in other words. But a juristic person by definition is something that is not a natural person. Okay, so that is a very important aspect. The application must be made the way that the registrar provides. So you get a lot of notes, you get JSE rules and directives, you get a lot of notes from the registrar to discuss how they would like application to be made, and there are various requirements that must be met as well. This application needs to be accompanied by various other documents. If you looked at Section 7C, you will see the list of documents. At the moment, Section 7C number 5, it refers to a fee paid. At the moment, the fee is 450,000 Rand. Also, then it talks about the registrar can require additional information. It then publishes in a newspaper and it gives notice. So the notice must state certain things, as you can see there in Section 7(4)(b), everything that the notice must state. So that is with regards to the licensing of the exchange. Now we will look at Section 8 of the Financial Markets Act, which looks at the requirements that you need to fulfill in order to get an exchange license. So the minister says that you need specific assets and resources within the Republic. So you can't just be a shell company or a company trading in the Republic. You need assets, you need capital, right? And they say these resources must include financial, management, and human resources. So you need people in South Africa, management in South Africa, and certain financial capital in order to apply for the license. You need to have governance arrangements that are transparent and clear. So you need to know that the company's ethics and their government supports what South Africa aims to achieve. So in the last module, we'll deal with good governance, which is King 4, and you'll see later on in more detail what that is. They must demonstrate the fit and proper requirements, and this fit and proper terminology you will come across quite a lot in this course, because fit and proper refers to people. They need to have certain ethics in place. They couldn't have gone to jail for crime relating to money and things like that. They need to have efficient surveillance of transactions. Why do you think they need to have a look at the surveillance of transactions? Why is it important for a financial institution to keep an eye on their transactions? Well, put simply, for money laundering protection. You want to make sure that your exchange is not used for money laundering and terrorist financing. And lastly, you must monitor compliance. So you need to have a compliance officer or someone who deals with compliance and make sure that every time there is an amendment to legislation that deals with the financial markets, that compliance officer says, do we comply? Do we not comply? What do we need to change? Okay, still dealing with Section 8, the requirements. You need to be able to effectively manage risks associated with the operation of the exchange. So if you think of an exchange that's cyclical, there are booms, there are busts, and you need to be able to efficiently mitigate those risks. You have a model in place that will predict what will happen in a downward cycle, upward cycle, for example. You also need to have effective backup procedures, guarantees, compensation funds, warranties. So, for example, if something happens with a client that's not supposed to, you need to have funds in place. You need to have efficient and effective clearing and settlement. That is very important to make sure that the transactions are complied with. And also supervision of these authorized users. Now, Section 8.2 talks about what the registrar may do. So the registrar is allowed to furnish information that they deem necessary that the exchange needs to do. So if the registrar decides that the exchange needs to comply with an additional requirement, they may do so. They can also take into consideration other information that the exchange gives. Doesn't matter what the source is. So if you have additional information, you may give that to the registrar and they may take it into consideration. Be aware of that word may, very different to the word must. May means they don't have to take it into account and they don't have to furnish information. Must means, well, they have to do it. So if you give them other information, they don't have to take it into account. Keep in mind. Dealing with the licensing of the exchange in Section 9. So after considering the application, okay, and firstly the applicant has to comply with the requirements, and the objectives of the Act must be furthered in granting the exchange. So keep in mind, what are the objects of the Act? Competitive markets, a good exchange system in South Africa. So if that is fulfilled, then you could be granted a license. The license must specify specific terms and conditions. And then the registrar will publish that license on the official website, giving the names, proposed amendments that the registrar would like the exchange to do, and the period where you can apply to object.